Hey, this is Brian Bromberg, and you are watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com. Coming to you today from the 2017 Winter NAMM Show, Anaheim, California, with our very, very old friend, Brian Bromberg. Yo, Brian.
Very old friend, getting older by the moment. Hey, man, good to see you.
Good to see you, too. You know what? I have interviewed you a couple of times. We did an interview. We did a feature. This is actually the first video interview that we've done together.
Wow.
And I was looking over the last one we did, and you were all excited about Bass On The Broadband. That was a couple years ago. Didn't turn out the way you had hoped. Why don't you bring everybody up to date and fill us in on what happened with that?
It turned out...
First of all, what was it?
It was the first internet radio station for bass players in the world. It's the first bass radio station of any kind, actually, not just internet, of any kind. And it actually exceeded my expectations in many, many ways. We had listeners in 175 countries. We grew literally every month. Our stats got bigger, and it was incredible. Emails from people all over the world, playing great bass players from all over the world. The whole reason why I started the station was I felt like I was one of the lucky ones. I've always had a record deal. I've been a recording artist. I've had a record deal for 30 years.
You are old.
I am old. I've had many hits on radio, and I've sold hundreds of thousands of records, which is a blessing, considering a bass player. Good luck. And I felt like, you know, I've had a lot of fortune and a lot of really good luck as a bass player. Many bass players don't have a chance to do that in a solo career. I wanted to give other bass players that opportunity to get their music heard. With the fact that so much of commercial radio has gone away, the record industry has gone away for the most part. Most of the record labels are gone. I mean, so many things have changed in the business that there's so many great bass players out there that record their music and have absolutely no outlet for it commercially. There's no way to hear them. Everybody's got their CD, go to the gigs, they have CDs, but you don't hear it from an artist that's doing this 10,000 miles away in a different country. So I wanted to create a radio station to give these bass players an opportunity to get heard, like I've been fortunate enough to do for the past 30 years, you know, before the demise of the industry, in a sense. Not trying to be morbid, but it's really changed. So, in a sense, it way exceeded my expectations of just how good the music was. There's so many great bass players making great records. Many who I've never heard of would be just like, wow, who are you, or where are you from? That's why I wanted to do it in the first place. So that aspect, it really exceeded my expectations. Where it didn't exceed my expectations was the fact that we were on the air for almost 5 years and got almost no industry support. We had a few sponsors. A couple companies, you know, believed in us and gave us a shot and helped us out, but for the most part, the industry is what really let me down as far as their willingness to support the bass community, the global bass community, where, if you think about it, like, none of the magazines supported us, most of the websites didn't support us. It's basically we were kind of on our own. We really, and most of the manufacturers here at the NAMM Show, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies that make bass-oriented equipment, straps, strings, instruments, cases, amps, preamps, all this stuff. If you think about running commercials on a radio station globally that's heard everywhere on top of a website, you can market your products, market your artists, do all this stuff literally globally, instantaneously. You can reach the end user. And if you think about a radio station for bass players, most of the people who listen are bass players. Well, bass players buy basses, and they buy strings, and they buy straps, and they buy cases, and they buy cars to get to gigs, right? All of it's connected. They get financed by Wells Fargo, just like I did. You know, it's like you do what you got to do to survive, right? And the industry is what disappointed me the most, is that they didn't believe in the model enough, or they didn't get or understand the power and the reach of a global radio broadcast in marketing their products to that end user. The bass player listening is going to go buy that bass, going to go buy those strings, going to go buy that case. And that's what frustrated me the most. And the fact that the publications and the websites that talk about bass really did nothing to help us. And I think they probably viewed us as competition, but we're not competition. You know, if you're a magazine, you're doing print media talking about bass stuff or bass players. If you're a website, it's virtual print media, it's journalism talking about bass talking about bass players. We're a radio station. We play the bass players. So there is no competition. You tune into Bass on the Broadband to actually hear the artist play while you're writing, talking about the artist, while the magazine is doing a story on the artist, while the amp company is endorsing the artist. It's all connected. But I think a lot of them viewed us as competition.
It was a great concept, and I enjoyed it. I used to listen to it, and I commend you for giving it a try. I know you did your best, and maybe you were ahead of your time. Maybe the industry wasn't ready for it. Who knows? But I don't think congratulations is too soft of a word. I truly commend you for doing it, and on behalf of bass players everywhere, thanks for giving it a try.
Well, it's not even just giving it a try. We were actually very successful. We actually brought in a fair amount of money at times. And I get emails from all over the world from people that listen, so that to me is a success, and that's remarkable. And it was basically word of mouth. So
it's a healthy way to look at it.
If I was rich, I would just do it out of my own pocket like I did for 5 years because I believed in it. But with your own life and the fact that I'm fortunate that I get to produce records, I get to make records, I tour the world, I do different things. I have a solo career to take care of as well, and I just can't do all of it. If I had the money, I would just do it and pay somebody to run it and whatever. I just don't have the money to do that anymore. That's where the advertising comes in.
Okay, so that is a good segue. Tell us, you've moved on, obviously, and you've always got an exciting project, or usually a whole big handful of exciting projects that you're working on. So what's going on now? What's keeping you busy?
Just released a new CD in Japan a few weeks ago, actually January 1st, with a great Japanese drummer, Akira Jimbo. It's the JB project. It's called Brombo 3. The Japanese named it, Bromberg, Jimbo, Brombo. It's a really cool record, actually. Had a lot of fun doing it. Jeff Lorber's on piano, Admar Ruiz is on piano, Patrice Russian. It's like features. It's like 3 trios. It's our 3rd record, so it was kind of a cool thing to do. That just got out. Still working, doing dates for my last jazz CD called Full Circle, which is my first real straight ahead jazz CD in a long time. I also played drums on it, which was really rewarding for me. I grew up playing drums, so it was really fun to get back and play drums again. So that was fun. So we're doing dates all over the world with that, which is very cool. I've been on tour, on and off throughout the year, from Asia to Europe. So that's been really cool.
Let me know when you come through Detroit.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll play the Detroit Jazz Festival again soon, because I'm on Mack Avenue, which, Artistry, and they sponsor the festival.
Right. Mack Avenue.
And then besides that, producing other people, just finished working on Bobby Kimball, who's the high singer for Toto. Rosanna, all that stuff. We just did his solo record that's just getting released, and spent a long time working on that record. That's pretty cool. It's really fun because it's not jazz. It's totally different, but it's burning, and the band's great, and the music's great, so it's fun to get out of my normal genre to do something different. You put your producer hat on, it's a different thing. I don't think like bass player. It's a totally different vibe. And then what I'm really excited about now for me is my next funky record, which I haven't done in a long time. So all the music's written, already started recording it. Not sure if it's going to come out this year or next year, but I've never made a record like this before. I've made a lot of different records in my career, and there's been like dabbling here, dabbling there. This is going to be the first real, serious, ultra groove funky record I've ever done from beginning to end for the most part. I'd say, 95% of the music is very specific genre. Like there's a couple little things here and there that are different. I've never really done that before, and I'm really excited about it.
Do you have a title for the record yet?
The working title right now is called A Little Driving Music. Okay. It's one of the songs, and it's I'm telling you, you want to put this disc in and just listen to it when you cruise down the freeway. It's just one of those, just like one after another, after another, after another of just feel-good, in-your-face tunes. So who knows what it'll ultimately be called. And it's going to feature my Kiesel basses, which is really cool. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, what you holding there in your lap, Brian?
Just saw this today for the first time, NAMM show, but it's one of my B25. It's my... I guess it's my signature model. Well, it's my design, so it is. I never want to put my name on an instrument, so it's truly my signature of my bass on the 12th fret. But it's beautiful, nice, really beautiful burl piece of wood. 18-volt electronics, radius pickups, which I brought to them, which is very, very cool. You see so many guys playing with a ramp, and for me, I'm an upright guy. I'm an old-school upright jazz guy. When you think about it, you've got a radius fingerboard. You've got a radius bridge, you've got radius neck on an upright bass. I got used to playing over a fingerboard, And it never felt comfortable to me to play an electric bass because, you have a radius fingerboard and you got your bridge in the radius, but the pickups were flat. So your center strings are higher above the pickup, and it always felt uncomfortable to me because I was so used to playing my upright. So this accomplishes two different things. One is because it follows the radius of the fingerboard, the string height above the pickup is basically the same if you want it to be. So it's very comfortable when you go across because you don't feel this flat pickup with the radius on top. So that's one thing, and that's why all these guys that play with, so many of them that play with like this ridiculous technique, they all have ramps because you can play more efficiently and more evenly when you have a ramp to play over. So that accomplishes that. The other thing is that the magnet itself is radiused, which means that on a flat pickup, if you have, especially on a 5-string, or a 6-string's even worse, but on a 5-string, which most bass players play 5-string, if you have a flat pickup, your A string is the farthest away from the magnet. So as you go to the A string, it actually gets quieter as you get into the middle of the bass, and it gets louder out here. These don't do that. These are even because the magnet actually follows the strings. So these are the things that I wanted to do in my design, is to try to make it as ergonomic and as thoughtful as possible. It's not just some bass you put your name on it or just some bass, whatever. Every aspect of the instrument there's been thought behind, like the shape. I mean, it looks traditional, yet it doesn't look traditional, but if you look at the shape, right, the lower horn, it just sits on your leg. It's comfortable, you can play, you don't need a strap sitting down.
How about the bridge?
I'll get to the bridge. I'll finish the rest and I'll work my way down. The cutaway, total access to the 24th fret, right? Upper horn over the 12th fret, so it balances perfectly, Angled headstock for, you don't need a string tree, so there's even string tension for all the strings. Again, the radius pickups, things like that, just to make it a very user-friendly, very comfortable experience. You can go through the back of the body with the strings, or you can go through here because of the Hipshot bridge as well. We use the Hipshot bridge because they're great, and these are going through the body. When you go through the body, you get a little more tension, you get more resonance because the string is coming back through, you get a little more sustain, or they say.
What kind of wood is this?
This looks like it's actually a burl or it comes out of spalted maple. I don't know. I didn't ask because I just saw it for just a little bit ago for the first time. It's gorgeous though. This looks like ash. I'm not sure what the center stripes are. All these instruments are laminate. They all have 2 graphite rods running the full length of the neck that are unbelievably like precision laser cut in there and super glued in. You will not find a more stable neck out there. It's incredible how stable these necks are now with the way they're building them. So the bass itself is fantastic, and I couldn't be happier. They did a really, really incredible job.
That's great. Yeah, that's
3-band EQ.
reason to be excited.
Master volume, true master volume. So when you turn it down, it's like turning down the output of a mixer, I guess, because I'm like, in the studio, I'm used to being in a more controlled environment where you turn a fader down. What this does is when I turn the bass off, the pickups are still on 10. So, how many basses if you play where you turn the volume down this much, your sound drops 50% and sounds like that. This doesn't do that. It's a true master volume. So you're actually turning the volume down after the pickup. So if you turn it up or down while you're playing, the sound doesn't change. It's a lot of little things that add up to the experience of playing it is more enjoyable and it's just more thoughtful. I want to look at it that way.
Like an awful lot of thought went into that. It is beautiful, and I would imagine when you plug it into an amp, it probably sounds pretty darn good too.
It does. Very, very, very. Actually, I'm very, very pleased with it. And the beautiful thing is, they're made in San Diego. They're American made, and it's just very happy. Thank you.
All right, good for you. Well, Brian, I always enjoy talking to you. I always learn a lot, and I always enjoy listening to your perspectives on things.
Right, 30 years ago, Arthur Steakhouse, Monty Alexander. You know who came into the club when you were there, and you didn't know it? Jaco Pastorius. So one night I'm hanging, Jaco and I got to be friends, and one night when I met Jaco the first time, the first time I actually met him was at a place called Chewy's in Phoenix, Arizona, and Alex Foster, a sax player friend of mine from New York, because when I was living in New York, I was friends with Alex. Alex was in his band, and Jaco's coming to town, I'm freaking out. I mean, Jaco. I was just like, end of story. That's it, Jaco. So I go to the gig, and it's just like, I'm going to go, and maybe I'll know somebody in the band. I didn't even know who was in the band, and it was just like, wow, man, it's Alex, my friend. So hung out with Alex, and it's just like, man, I'd love to meet Jaco. I've never met him. He's like, come here. So when I met Jaco for the first time, I got introduced to him by one of his band guys. So he looked at me maybe a little differently. And then when he realized who I was, this is the first time I met him, by the way, and I'm like shaking and sweating. I'm freaking out. It's Jaco Pastorius, right? He goes, "Yeah, man, I know you. I heard you with Monty Alexander at Arthur Steakhouse." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, man, I came in, I snuck in the back. I didn't want to let anybody know I was there." I said, he goes, man, you guys were burning. He's like, and he loved my playing. I was playing only upright. He's like, "Man, you're great." And I'm like, "What?" You were at the gig? You were there. Jaco was there, spent the whole night hanging out in back. I didn't even know he was there. Had I known he was there, I probably would have passed out. I would not have been able to play. He didn't, he just was there. So when I met him, it was like he already knew me and knew I could play, and it was cool. And we ended up hanging out until well after sunrise all night, and then we ended up jamming together, and it was incredible. I mean, everybody split. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. We're sitting there playing on stage, just him and me, and we're just like trading licks, and I just had to stop. I just stopped. I had to hear him. I had to listen to him. I had to listen to him. It was like it's like I can't play. I just had to stop playing.
I was so privileged to have lived in Florida during those years and have gotten to know him, and I got to jam with him too in his own living room and showing me fingerings to Teen Town and all that. And
we hung out. Yeah, he was amazing. Before he started getting into trouble, he was amazing, and to this day, for the record, to this day, he could play one note, just one note, and that's it. I don't need anything else. Donna Lee was great. That's not what knocked me out about Jaco. What killed me about Jaco, the first thing I heard was Portrait of Tracy. That took me out because that was pure genius and pure innovation. Anybody can practice and learn how to play fast if your body will let you do it, right? Not that I'm not saying that as a put down. Some guys are just ridiculous fast, but you can practice. You can't practice art. You can't practice innovation. You are either gifted or you aren't. End of story. That's it, And he had the gift. And when I heard Portrait of Tracy and watched him do that stuff, it was just like, oh my. I mean, he was the first electric bass player. You knew me. I was an upright jazz purist. That's it. I didn't even listen to electric music in those days. I was an upright guy.
Well, you were showing me some stuff on slapping.
Just learning then. I was an upright guy. That was it. Jaco was the first guy.
You shared a hotel room with Bobby Thomas Jr.
Yeah. Who was in Weather Report.
1984.
Jaco was the first electric bass player that I heard that made me look at the electric bass differently, with a different type of respect, because he turned it into a musical instrument unlike anyone I had ever heard. And one more thing. Think about Teen Town. It's about 40 years old now, 30, 40 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
Right? If that came out today, would still be the most groundbreaking bass feature tune ever, 40 years later. Think about how badass, and I can say that tune was back then. Think about if that came out now and you heard somebody do that now, you'd be blown away. 40 years ago.
Think about that.
I'll get off my Jaco rant, but that is the difference between being great and or practicing and being touched or gifted like a Hendrix or like whatever. There's just something different. That's the bar that I don't want to play like him, but that's the bar of the artistry and the genius that inspires me to want to try to be better, because there was no one that sounded like him before he came around, and everybody that's tried to sound like him after can't. It's like you only play like that. Same with Jimi Hendrix, same thing. There's a few guys that they carve their niche and that's it. To me, he was that on the electric bass.
So, a lot to think about. Brian, I always enjoy these conversations because you never know where they're going to go, and you get me excited thinking about things that
now you're going to go listen to Weather Report right now.
Probably will. I think we ought to leave it at that, but lots to think about, very inspiring. From the 2017 Winter NAMM Show, Anaheim, California, with our good old friend Brian Bromberg. I'm John Liebman. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.